on how to survive the tech storm. And first, let me introduce myself. I'm Steve Koenig. I'm the Senior Director of Market Research at Consumer Technology Association. Welcome to CES. We're delighted to have you, and more, we're delighted to be talking about Nicholas Bergstrom, he's right here, about his new book, which again is a handbook for surviving the technology storm. And some of you may think that CES is a bit of a tech storm, but we're going to talk about this. And first, Nicholas, tell us a little bit about your background. I understand that you're a serial entrepreneur. You come from a family of entrepreneurs, and that experience was one of the things that really gave you the inspiration to write this book.
Yeah, that's true. I've been working as an entrepreneur my whole life, and I just realized a couple of years ago that I've been living in this VUCA environment. When you say volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and it's for me, it started in 1990 when we founded in the family. We founded the Volvo dealer network in Romania, and you can't be more uncertain. You can't be in a more uncertain world than Romania or Eastern Europe in the 1990s.
Right, with the fall of the Iron Curtain. And
yes, and it was. I mean, you had no commercial law. It was very interesting, very strange. And since we had a background there for the past 20 years, for us the uncertainty was kind of good and interesting. We could see opportunities there, but I mean, it was the odd situation when you came to the office in the morning and a couple of workers were fixing the telephone lines, and you said, "Oh, great, we get new phones finally after 6 months," and they said, "No, we're just disconnecting the guys in the basement." Oh, okay, good. Well, appreciate that. And then it took another couple of months or half a year or something, and then they were back. And they said, "Oh, now we're going to get our telephone lines." No, we're plugging the guys back in the basement. So I mean, that's just an anecdote, but I realized I've always been enjoying the uncertainty and the opportunities that comes from that.
Well, yeah, and it's great to have a handbook for that, because at CTA and in what I do in market research, we see all the time perspectives from consumers and business people alike that they're really struggling with a lot of the disruption that comes from technological innovation. And one of the things I've talked about is that it's kind of yin and yang forces, isn't it? It's innovation breeds disruption. Disruption then breeds further innovation to cope with that disruption. And I think that's something that you've pretty much experienced your whole professional life.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, since turn of the millennium, like 15 years ago, I started working a lot more with early stage technology startups, usually coming out of research environments in universities. So it was very early working with nanotechnology, for example.
Right.
And I remember one case where it's always about the people, of course. But when you're very early, and I sometimes co-found the companies, so then it's not necessarily about the people. Then it's about the technology, because you're going to add the people afterwards. We sat with the innovator, a professor at one of the Swedish universities, where he actually, we started discussing, okay, this is an interesting technology, but what do we use it for? And he had no clue. We didn't really have a clue either. We just saw that this is really, really interesting. And looking back, I mean, this is almost 15 years ago. It was in nanotechnology, very early in nanotechnology. And it took us almost 2 years to define the actual purpose of this product, what to be used for. And we did it with a small group of people. And as I see today, it was a challenge, because in this specific case, we were way too early. That market is gaining a lot of foothold now, like maybe more than 10 years later.
Good.
So timing, when it comes to technology, I mean, you have to understand what technologies you see at the horizon. And then the second part of analyzing that technology is to see, okay, what timing do I have here? Is it on the radar?
Yes.
Do we have it? Is it gaining some kind of traction? Is it hyped? I mean, CES is part of the hype, of course, in a good way.
Yes.
And then just try to see when can you see that it will gain some kind of mainstream adoption, and then decide as a company, when should I jump on board.
True, and for those of you that have the book and are following along, what Nicholas is describing is on page 132. There's a very handy diagram here that kind of gives you a sense of what he's describing. And the book is just full of these helpful graphics, diagrams, and so forth. And also, conveniently, he's given us a view to his Spotify playlist at the very end.
Yeah, that's something I mean, if you read the book, buy the book, you have to go through the whole playlist, because that's my only chance of sharing my taste in music. It will never happen otherwise, so.
Exactly. And right at the beginning, you kind of preface your tactics and strategies for coping with that uncertainty that technology brings with several megatrends, including demographics. We often talk about various consumer segments, millennials and so forth. Can you talk to us about some of those megatrends that you feature in the book that, in your view, are really those drivers of change?
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, I see, and it's not that is not my unique thinking in any way. It's just more or less stating the obvious for to give a framework to that discussion about technology later. But I mean, technology is fueling most of these other mega trends. And aging demography is because, I mean, we have improvements in medicine and the way we live. Makes us live longer. Same thing with the environment. We have a great challenge with the environment, and of course technology is part of that problem. But technology is also part of the solution, I believe. And we have the globalization, the same thing there. It's fueled by the opportunity and what we actually can do to communicate better around the world, for example. So we see all these things, and I see technology as the driving force underneath all these other mega trends.
Right. Well, so those may not be yours alone, but there
No.
are a set of technologies that you have personally identified as really being game changers, progenitors, if you like, of disruption and innovation, and you categorize those in different ways, like bits and neurons. So how did you come up with that, and what are some of these technologies that you've identified?
I mean, popularly speaking, you can talk about the bang technologies as bits, as in information technology, A as in atoms, and nanotechnology, new materials, the physical world, the bricks also. N as in neurons, neurotechnology, our understanding of the human brain, G as in genes and biotechnology. And when we're in a technological shift, a paradigm shift, as we are now when information technology is maturing, we see a lot of these interesting aspects in this shift. One of the most interesting things is that we actually see a cross-pollination between disciplines. I mean, we see it here on the floor.
Absolutely.
Information technology merging with neurotechnology, merging with biotechnology. You get the health trackers, the wearables, for example. So, and that is true now, but that was also true when we went from the age of the steam engine to the age of electricity. Same thing happened then.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I've often described this as like a Venn diagram of overlapping technologies.
Exactly.
Many examples of this throughout CES. 3D printing that is directly related to health and wellness, and imaging technology, et cetera, et cetera. So in essence, you can have your foot scanned, and then Nike will 3D print your next set of trainers, which should be really customized, which is a personalization. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these things are highlighted by you with these bits and neurons and other things, and these 44 technologies, the bang technologies.
Yeah, no, exactly. And these, the 44 emerging technologies that I list is also meant to be used as a guide. I mean, you look through these, you work with these, and see how they will affect your business. Because, I mean, when you have analyzed the technologies, you've identified a number of technologies that are crucial to your business future, for example. And then you've seen how the timing is in that. When will they break through? When will that happen, etc. And then as a second step in that process that you showed is to try to understand the business implications of these new technologies. How will it change my industry? Will there be new competitors? Will existing competitors change? Will my suppliers go in my direction? Will they start competing with me? I got partners today. Will they be starting to compete with me, for example? And the second part of that is of course my market, my customers. How can I interact more with my customers? Will they have new demands based on these technologies, new ways of distribution, for example?
Yeah, and when a lot of these technologies are going to come to bear on my business model or whatever, the timing is something that we were talking about earlier that you said is one of the key pieces to understand, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and it's really like that. And someone once said that, I mean, you got three traits you need to succeed. The first one is luck, the second one is timing, and the third one is talent. And I think there's a lot of things it has to do with. I can see that in my investments in my companies I've been working with, that luck is an essential part, but then also timing. I've been way too early in some of my investments. I've been way wrong in some of my investments, of course, and it often has to do with the timing part. So we tend to realize, understand, and learn, and see that sometimes, especially when it comes to very early stage technology innovations, that we keep them in a lab to make them grow and to try to find the applications before you incorporate, before you start building an organization around it. So you keep the research going for quite a long time.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
interesting.
And we've seen a lot of these kind of examples to come back to timing and just elaborate on that a little bit more. At CES, we've seen very early marketplace that are maybe ahead of their time a little bit, and then we'll see those disappear and then come back again when the timing is right.
Of
there
course.
are a whole range of reasons, like you were saying, that can be a function of this. But I think one of the nice things that you do for readers in your book is not only you're giving them these tactics and strategies, but you're pointing to a series of case studies. There are 4 of them in the book, including business of Spotify, IKEA, 2 Swedish companies, of course. Talk to us a little bit about these case studies and maybe what they're about and why you selected them and include them as a way to really solidify these tactics and examples or strategies that are in the book.
Yeah, I mean, I chose them from 2 reasons. One is that I had access to them, and that's important if you're going to write a case about it. And it's the chairman of IKEA, the co-founder and chairman of Spotify. It's Stephen Wolfram, the founder of Wolfram Research, and
Yes.
also the editor-in-chief of Swedish tabloid magazine, tabloid newspaper. And I wanted to find companies that had experienced technology in different ways. Technologies in different ways, and how they changed their business model, yes or no. So IKEA is an interesting example because they have not changed their business model whatsoever. They still sell stuff.
Yeah, and they're the kings of RTA furniture, aren't they?
Yeah, and of course, and they definitely are, and they've been doing a great job all these years. But what's really interesting is that they are starting to become really innovative. They work a lot with innovation, new. They try out new things, and in the background, they are super sophisticated when it comes to technology. Of course, I mean, running the whole business is it's tons of processes and systems in the background, of course, for the logistics, for product development, and all these things. So that's one thing. And IKEA has actually started now to work more with innovation labs, innovation hubs that they fuel, and where they co-work with other entities. So it's really, really interesting what they're doing there. Spotify is another example where, I mean, they launched almost 10 years ago now. It started in 2006, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say this, but I was actually I'm old friends with the co-founder Martin, and in early 2007 he asked me if I was interested in looking at his new venture. So I did. I was affiliated with a venture capital company at that time, and I met with them when they were like 10 people in an apartment in Stockholm, and we looked at it. It was really interesting. I sort of understood what it was. I mean, I'm really interested in music. I had a big challenge explaining to my fellow partners at the venture capital company on how it worked and why this was important. So we actually said no to that investment. And that was like, that's not my proudest moment as an investor, of course. It's really weird.
I'm sure a lot of investors, if they were honest, would have similar experiences.
Yeah, I mean, you have the anti-portfolio.
There was this little fruit company called Apple, you know.
Exactly. So now, of course, you have all this. And when looking at, I mean, I've been following Spotify ever since, and I'm a user. I love the service. It's great. But what's interesting in this perspective with the book is that what they saw in 2006, 2007 when they started, they saw cloud-based storage. They saw leaving the desktop environment, going to a laptop environment, and then going to mobile environment. And they saw that before we had fast broadband connections on our smartphones,
LTE,
before we had
yeah.
the smartphones. I mean, they started pre-iPhone, if we call it. They saw all these things. They saw big data, advanced analytics, where you could get recommendations based on what other people listen to and what you listen to. So they saw all these things. I shouldn't say before everyone else, but they saw it very, very early. And that is very interesting as a technology timing thing. They were really, really good in timing the technology there. And of course, lucky. Everyone is lucky. And the other part for Spotify is that they brought in all these new technologies into that industry, but they also totally changed the business model. I mean, they went from downloading and owning music to streaming and subscribe to music.
That's right.
And independently of what will happen to Spotify or any of the other players in the industry, I don't think that we will ever go back and pay for music like we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I've often said iTunes is kind of 2000 and late. I mean,
Yeah.
Everybody wants to stream. We're all moving
Exactly.
to an on-demand direction.
Exactly. So that's really interesting how they both launched new technologies and a new business model at the same time, and that is extremely difficult.
Yeah. So luck, timing, talent. Let's wrap up with just a little bit more perspective from you on probably the most important part of this process, and the most important part of the book is how you adapt to uncertainty. And of course, you're drawing on your vast experience as an investor, as an entrepreneur, things that you've seen, successes and failures. All of this, the readers can benefit from your experience. So tell us, maybe just really quickly, what are the keys to success in adapting to uncertainty? Because no shortage of uncertainty out there in the business world.
No, I mean that's a new normal. Everyone says that today, and it is definitely like that. And I mean, I can see it two ways. I can see it in two ways. How to cope with uncertainty? Just the quick fix, we say so.
Right.
Either you're the one like building the future. You're the one shaping the industry. Like, for example, Spotify did. They introduced new technology, a new business model into the industry, and based on their agility and based on their relatively, I mean, they have had a lot of funding into the company. First from the entrepreneurs themselves, because they were successful entrepreneurs that sold companies earlier, and also from other investors in Spotify. They've been able to shape that industry, be persistent, because of they had the funds to do it.
Yeah.
So that's one strategy, is actually to shape, try to shape your future, shape the industry you're in. The other, I mean, if you're smaller, if you're not as well funded, you don't have all the resources, you will have to be the one trying to adopt to the changes in your industry. Be quick, be nimble, adopt to the changes, listen very closely to what's going on in the industry, and try to work accordingly. So either you're the shaper or you're the adopter, actually, in the industry. That's the two, and then you have all these parts in between, of course. But that's the two extremes.
Yeah, I've also heard it said that you're either the fly or the windscreen. So
Yeah.
Be the windscreen.
Yeah, be the windscreen. Yeah, that's good.
It's Surviving the Tech Storm. Nicholas Bergman is the author. If you need a handbook for grasping with uncertainty, ambiguity, in this technological age. This is the book. It's available right over here to our left at Gary's Book Club. Nicholas, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to be here. Thanks.